Okay, so in part F of the lesson that pertains to Introduction to Polynomials, we're going to evaluate polynomials at the given value for the variable. Now, in a previous lesson, you did evaluate expressions, but those expressions were not necessarily polynomials. In this case, we're dealing specifically with polynomials. And basically, remember, when you evaluate an expression at particular variables, you just substitute those numbers back into the variable and use the order of operation. All right, so let's look at this example. It's a very easy section. It's not difficult. So we're going to evaluate each polynomial at the given value for the variable. All right, so number one. Here's our polynomial, negative 2x plus 10, and I want to know, what is this expression equal to? What is this polynomial equal to when x is negative 1? So remember, just as you did before, wherever you see the variable x in the polynomial, I only see it in this term right here. I'm going to substitute negative 1. Now remember, when we did this, when we substitute these numbers back in, remember what we did. We used parentheses. It does help, so I need for you to use parentheses. So remember, this means negative 2 times x, so you say negative 2 times a negative 1. And then plus 10. Okay, now using the order of operations, remember all you see here is multiplication and addition, so you're going to multiply first. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2, and so 2 plus 10 is 12. Okay, so in the answer, you're going to put 12. All right, number 2. So number 2, you have this polynomial, 3x squared plus 12x minus 15. And this time you want to evaluate this polynomial whenever the variable is 0, whenever x is 0. So where we see the variable is x, and you see it here and you see it here, you're going to substitute 0. Again, use parentheses. Actually do that step. So you're going to say 3 times 0, and remember x is being squared, so you're going to say 0 squared plus 12 times 0, and then minus 15. Okay, so let's just go ahead, and in polynomials it's easy to evaluate, because you're just going to with polynomials you're just going to find the value of each term, whereas when we did expressions before, you really had to use the order of operations. You had to use the order of operations. Here, you're just going to see what each term is equal to. So that's the easy kind, is when you have a polynomial and you're evaluating it. So again, in this term though, you're still going to use the order of operations for each term, because remember, in this term you have 3 times 0 squared. So you got to say 0 squared first. So 0 squared is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, and then 0 times 3 is 0. So this term is 0. This term, 12 times 0 is also 0, and then minus 15. So 0 plus 0 minus 15 is a negative 15. So your answer will be negative 15. All right, next one. We have negative 2x cubed plus 7x squared minus 2, and this time I want to evaluate it when x is 1. So where we see the variable x, I'm going to substitute 1. So I get negative 2 times 1 in parentheses cubed plus 7 times 1 in parentheses squared minus 2. So don't forget your exponents. The exponents are important. Now let's do each term. Now remember, you're still going to use the order of operation for each term, because remember, this is multiplication and then exponents. So we do exponent first. A common mistake people do is they don't use the order of operations, and they say negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, and then cube negative 2. That's incorrect. That is not mathematically correct. You must use the order of operations with each part. So 1 cubed, remember 1 cubed means 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. So this is negative 2 times 1, which is negative 2. Okay? So you got to be careful. You have to do exponent first before you do multiplication. Same thing here. 1 squared is 1. 1 squared means 1 times 1. So don't say 7 times 1 is 7 and square 7 to get 49. Mathematically, that's not correct. You have to use the order of operations with each term. So 1 squared is 1. 1 times 7 is 7. So you're saying 7 times 1, which is 7. So far we have negative 2 plus 7, and then the constant term minus 2. All right, and so we say negative 2 plus 7 is 5. 5 subtract 2 is 3. So our answer is 3. All right, number 4. Okay, number 4, you have 3x cubed minus 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. This time x is negative 2. So again, it's very important that you put parentheses around the negative 2 when you substitute negative 2 back into this polynomial. So we get 3 times negative 2, notice the parentheses, cubed, minus 2 times negative 2, minus 3 times negative 2. So where we saw the variable x, I substituted negative 2, plus 1. Now you're going to deal with each term individually. So if you look at this term here, I'm saying 3 times negative 2 raised to the third power. So you do exponent first. Remember, the order of operations, exponent comes before multiplication. So negative 2 cubed means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is a negative 8. So this is 3 times a negative 8. And then 3 times a negative 8 is a negative 24. All right. Well, now over here, the exponent here is 1. So negative 2 to the first is still negative 2. Now remember, this term is a negative 2 times a negative 2. So a negative 2 times a negative 2 is a positive 4. So we have negative 24 plus 4. Over here, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the squared, excuse me. Sorry. So negative 2, oops, excuse me. So negative 2 squared is 4. So that's negative 2 times 4. And so negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. All right, excuse me about that. I forgot the exponent 2 here. Over here, negative 3 times a negative 2 is a positive 6. All right, so far I have a negative 24 minus 8 and then plus 6. So again, remember you got to do exponent first. So don't say negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 and then square 4 because you don't get 16. You're supposed to get negative 8. So exponent and then multiplication. All right. So here the exponent's 1, so negative 2 to the first is still negative 2, and then negative 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 6. And then finally, your constant term is the only thing left. All right, and so remember you add and subtract from left to right. So we get negative 24 and a negative 8. Negative 24 and a negative 8 is a negative 32. That's negative 32. And writing everything else over. The negative 32 plus 6 is a negative 20, what's that, 28? All right, oops, sorry, negative 26, excuse me, negative 26. And the negative 26 plus 1 is a negative 25. Okay, so the answer is negative 25. All right, number 5, finally number 5. So it's a very, oops, sorry, there are 2 more problems. So it's a very easy section. It's not difficult. All right, now what's going to get students sometimes is when the term, the coefficient is negative, but it's a negative 1. So you got to be careful when it's a negative 1. See, something like this students can do. It's very easy for them. But this, they mess up a little. But what I would do is this. Remember, this negative x squared, and here's how I would rewrite it. I would say, well, that's going to be negative 1 times x squared. So write as negative 1, okay? And so in this case, x is 3, so you're going to say negative 1 times 3 squared. And then it will be easier to deal with. Minus 7 times x is 3, and then plus 4. All right, so let's do each term. Exponent first, so 3 squared is 9. 3 squared, remember, it's 3 times 3, so that's 9. 9 times a negative 1 is what we have. Negative 1 times 9. Is what we have, and so that's negative 9. So the first term's a negative 9. All right. Now, another mistake people make, see where they have the negative x? You got to be careful. So x is 3, but the only thing being squared, remember, is x. So don't put the negative 3 inside the parentheses, okay? The only thing being squared, we've talked about this in a previous lesson, the only thing being squared is this x. So you're going to square x first, and then you're going to multiply by negative 1. All right, so be careful. All right, so here, negative 7 times 3 is a negative 21. All right, so I have negative 9 minus 21. And then finally, the constant plus 4. All right, so negative 9 and a negative 21 is a negative 30. A negative 30, so I get negative 30 plus 4, which is a negative 26. So the answer is negative 26. Okay, and then finally, same thing. Remember that negative x squared. And this time, though, x is negative 4. So again, it does help if you write this as negative 1 times x squared. All right, so what's being squared is x. X is negative 4. Remember, the only thing being squared here is x, so be careful. So whatever x is, you're squaring it, and then you're going to multiply by negative 1. It's important to remember that. Minus 2 times negative 4, so x is negative 4, and then minus 5. And don't forget, that's negative 4 squared. I forgot the square again. All right, so negative 4 squared, do exponent first. Order of operations. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. So this becomes negative 1 times 16, which is a negative 16. Okay, over here, I have negative 2 times a negative 4, which is a positive 8. So I get negative 16 plus 8. And then your constant term minus 5. All right, so let's figure out what this is. So negative 16 plus 8 is a negative 8. And then negative 8 and a negative 5 is a negative 13. Negative 13. So your answer is negative 13. Okay? All right, so that's all this was. It's not a difficult section. It's not a difficult lesson, I should say. This part's not difficult. But you did have evaluating expressions in the past. These are evaluating polynomials. And they're actually easier to deal with. Evaluating polynomials is easier to deal with than evaluating just any expression that has multiple variables in it. But remember, be very careful when you have something like 5 and 6 where it's a negative x to a power. All right, so the only thing that's being squared is this x. So you're going to square whatever that value is, and then you're going to multiply by negative 1. Okay, so that takes care of part